Come to Jesus. He will never cast you out. Come you thirsty. Put aside your fear, your doubt. With great gentleness, with great gentleness, he draws you, how he draws you. See how he draws you to himself.
From Mark. And they went away in a boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. Let's make sure we know who these thems are. Lots of thems. Jesus and the disciples went away in a boat to a deserted place, and they, all of the crowds, went ahead of them. As he went ashore, Jesus, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. When it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, "There is a deserted place, and the hour is now very late. Send them away, please, so that they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy something for themselves to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "Are we to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves have you? Go and see." When they had found it, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then he ordered them to get all the people to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed it and broke it and the loaves and gave them to the disciples and set before the people, all of it. And he divided the 2 fish among them all. And all of them ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of the fish. Those who had eaten the loaves numbered 5,000 men. Probably women too, let's be honest. Okay, that's what they would have, how they would have written it. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So I don't remember much about youth group growing up. You know, I don't think y'all actually remember my sermons either. You remember my illustrations, and then hopefully you remember the connection to the illustration, but sometimes you don't. You know, you just remember the illustration. Tell me this funny story later and be like, what scripture did that have to do with? I don't know. I don't remember much about growing up in youth group, but a lot of youth group was like that for me. I remember a lot of funny things, little moments, but like very little of the teaching do I remember. But I do remember this one thing. It was a time when Pringles were like a really big thing, and they had just come out with sour cream and onion Pringles, and that was like everything. It was a novelty at that point in time, and the pop commercials and all of that. And our youth pastor was trying to do like a lesson on probably temptation. Like I'm saying, I'm loosey-goosey on the lesson, but probably temptation, and he said, like, these are just the most addictive food. He brings out his like can of sour cream and onion Pringles, so most addictive food, I think, invented up to this point in human development. And so he brought the cylinder to the group, and then he showed that he got 5 of them from the store that week, and they were stored in his desk, and we all loved it. And a few minutes later, he realized the rate of consumption of his 5 containers that he had brought out as a lesson, but the rate of consumption was starting to become a little alarming. Fistfuls were disappearing in teenage mouths, and his anxiety started to rise a little bit. And so when he comes back, he kind of hurriedly rushed around the room and like grabbed all 5 containers from us and slapped the lids back on them and then like wedged them behind his desk so we wouldn't eat anymore. And I remember the co-leader at the time, she just gave him this look of like, really? Like, well done becoming the incarnation of the lesson you're actually teaching. Like, you're hiding Pringles And he said he remembers that look. He remembered it. And he came to kind of do a little self-assessment. Wow, Pringles, they're deeper than you think. He started doing this self-assessment, and he said it exposed something in him as he thought about it that wasn't really about chips at all. It was about scarcity and fear, about a deep instinct to kind of tuck away when we start to feel like things are getting a little out of control. So hold that image in your mind for a second. A can of Pringles, lid on, or 5 cans of Pringles, lids on, hidden behind a youth pastor's desk in the youth room. Hold that image in your mind as we talk about Mark 6 today. Very well-known scripture, right? We know this story. It's not new to us. Little parts of it might have been new to you, or you might be remembered of pieces that you forgot. But there's this one line that has nothing to do with the 5,000 people or them being fed at all, but it's really worthy of our attention at the beginning. Mark writes, "So they went away in a boat to a deserted place by themselves," which should immediately tell us something about Jesus. Jesus is tired. He's very tired. And they've been healing, and they've been teaching, and he's been pouring himself out. And at this point in Mark's gospel, Jesus has just heard also of John the Baptist's death. And you can only imagine how that would affect his psyche. And not only is it his cousin by some amount removed, but John has been actively preaching about who Jesus is, what he's come here to do. And so Jesus' own future kind of has got to loom in his mind as he learns of this. Says to his disciples, "Please come away with me. Let's rest for a while." I would say this alone is important. This could be its own sermon in and of itself, maybe apart from all the feeding. Maybe it's something you need to hear. Rest is not unfaithful, right? It's Jesus-like, right? Christ did it. But when they get to that quiet place, when they get to the place of rest, the crowds have run ahead of them, thousands of them, each with their own needs and their longings and their hunger and their pain and all of it, encircling and entrapping and burdening Jesus. They all race around the lake, arriving before the boat even gets there, upending the rest that Jesus had wanted for himself. I wonder if you know that feeling. Maybe you've been looking for a deserted place this Lent, a slice of peace. But then when you get there, there's all the emails and all the texts and all the family needs and all the community crises and the global heartbreaks, right? They're all waiting at the shore. But when Jesus arrives, he sees the crowd. And Mark tells us something extraordinary about him. He says he sees them and he has compassion for them. Because they were just sheep without a shepherd. He doesn't send them away. He sees the interruption, and then he allows his rest to be kind of broken open by compassion. But this compassion doesn't mean he does it all alone. That's the next thing to notice about this passage. That's where the disciples come in, right? Mark goes on to explain, as it grew late, his disciples come to him and say, "This is a deserted place. The hour is now late. Jesus, they're hungry. And this is going to become a little unruly. If we don't send them away now, so that they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy something for themselves to eat." I don't think the disciples are being villains. They're being responsible. They're responsible for the crowd management, for risk assessment, liability. It's late, they're in a deserted place, there are thousands of people, and there is absolutely no food here, and they're going to get hungry. Jesus says, this is not safe. Send them away, please. Gosh, how often we feel this way when we see and feel and take in the scale of need of our world, of our community. We think in terms of logistics and budgets and capacity. What is realistically possible? We count what we don't have, right? That's what the disciples do. They immediately do the math when Jesus challenges them. Are we going to go buy 200 denarii worth of bread? It does not make sense. In today's terms, Jesus, that would be months of wages. Like, we do not have that kind of money. This is not feasible. They're holding the kind of Pringles tin of their resources and instinctively reaching for the lid for it, right? But Jesus doesn't focus on what they don't have. That's what we do. He starts with what they do have. Jesus answers them with this sentence that sounds almost cruel in its impossibility. You give them something to eat. He pushes the problem back into their hands. And they do what most of us do when confronted with a task that feels far beyond us. They stare at the gap between demand and supply, right? But Jesus directs them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. Not how much money do you have? Not how big is this crowd? Not how many of you are there? Not what are our deficits right now? But what do you have? Go and see. Start there. Bring that, whatever it is. And this becomes the turning point. Their mindset changes completely from scarcity calculation to this kind of inventory of graces out of nowhere. They move from we can't to, well, this is what we got. And they come back and say, 5 loaves. We got 5 loaves. We got 2 fish. 5 loaves, 2 fish. 5,000 plus people. You can almost hear the disciples' tone and like, okay, 5 loaves, 2 fish, with this kind of air of this is ridiculous underneath it. And that is where the miracle kind of begins. Not after they have enough, but when they're willing to put their not enough into the hands of Jesus and then into the middle of the community. And then after such an impractical request, Jesus then does something very practical. He doesn't rain bread from heaven. This miracle could have gone a lot of other ways, right? Think about it. Think about how much more miracle-y this could have been. He doesn't make fish appear in every lap. What does he do? He organizes the community. Did you hear it? He ordered them to get all the people to sit down in groups on the green grass. And so they sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s. You know what Jesus just did? He takes this massive crowd and turns it into small communities. He moves from this crowd chaos to these kind of circles of accountability and care. From anonymous to face now. And Jesus doesn't just solve a food shortage, he creates community space where shared life becomes visible all of a sudden. We can imagine what it might look like to share with one another. He builds a network of collective care on a hillside. He takes what is small and insufficient, lifts it up, blesses it, and then he gives it back to the disciples to distribute. Jesus does not feed the crowd directly. He feeds the crowd through each other, right? He blesses and breaks, and then they share it. And the miracle is not in the multiplying of the bread. The miracle is in the community distributing it. That's the miracle. Mark says, and all ate and were filled, and they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of fish that were left over. Everyone ate. Everyone was satisfied. There were leftovers, 12 baskets. 12, the number of the tribes of Israel, the fullness of God's people. In other words, there was not enough, there was more than enough. Think now about how different that is from our instinct to stuff the Pringles back in the can behind our backs into the drawer. We assume sharing leads to lack. But Jesus shows sharing revealing abundance. We assume we have to secure our own life first. We got to worry about our church first. But Jesus shows that life is secured in the middle of generous community. We assume the sensible choice is to send them away and they can go and buy it for themselves. Jesus insists that the kingdom choice, though, the kingdom choice is you give them something to eat. And here's the good news, the life-altering news here. The abundance does not come before we risk the sharing. Notice this story. It's discovered, the abundance is discovered as they share. It's not, the miracle isn't some private stash. It happens in the open, in the act of passing baskets, right? And this story should impress upon us in our lives and upon this church this sharp question. We see the overwhelming need around us in our world: hunger, loneliness, mental health, injustice, housing insecurity, climate change. How do we respond? Often we respond like the disciples. It's too big. We don't have enough. We're tired. This is unsustainable. Send them away. Or we respond like a youth pastor with a can of Pringles. Put the lid on the cylinder, quietly slide it out of sight. How do we respond? The gospel won't let us live there. The story is clear that it's in the sharing. Jesus keeps calling us back to those two words, go and see. Go and see what you do have. Go and see the gifts that are in the room, right? Go and see what resources and relationships and skills and space and time and compassion already exist among the people. Go and see what happens when 5 loaves and 2 fish are offered, not clutched, right? This month, our leadership team, if it's not on Tuesday night or it's during the day, it's in emails, it's in private meetings between Tanya and I, our trustees chair, or it's in late night conversations with Virginia Hills, or it's in another leadership team meeting, or hoping we have enough information for a leadership team meeting. But we are going to be working on a lease so that our mobile church can move into its next stage. And on paper, it's all real practical, right? It's super practical. storage space and like room access and office size and Sunday time slots and how much we need to pay. But like underneath all of that language, the legal language, there is this kind of question for both congregations. Do we protect ourselves? Or do we open what we have? What's the balance between those? What if this, how do we want to protect our future, secure our future? What if we end up paying more than we can afford? What if we become dependent on space that then is taken away from us? The fears sound like, what if we wear out our welcome? What if our schedules clash and we can't make this transition happen on Sunday mornings? What if what if they end the lease in a year? What if the schools fill with other churches? And so it would have been really easy on both sides to put the lid on the Pringles can, right? It's very easy to do that in this scenario. It's very easy to say, it's too complicated, it's too risky. Let's just stay portable forever because at least we have control. And they could have said, we've been waiting for this building for a long time. It's ours. We want it all. We need to focus on ourselves right now. But somewhere in the middle of all those conversations, both churches are having to ask a different question. Not, how do we protect what is ours and whatever our future we hope is, but what has God already placed in our hands that we can share? We have to keep coming back to it that way. And the lease we're writing, it's a business agreement. But it's also kind of like a liturgy of trust, right? Because if we can't figure out trust, how is the rest of the world going to figure it out? They chose to offer this building, not clutch it. We chose to bring our people, our resources, our rent, not as consumers, but as partners. And there's all kinds of risk in getting hurt in that. Together, we've agreed to hold each other's flourishing alongside our own. That's what it looks like when churches refuse to hoard their 5 loaves and 2 fish. And both of our loaves and fish are very different from their loaves and fish, right? And our fears for our future are very different than their fears for their future. But this is all we got, Jesus. It's yours. Use it, not just for our good, but for someone else's too. That's the kind of network of collective care that this miracle is inviting us into. Where it's together, that all the impossible that our brains comes up with becomes possible then. Think one more second as the band comes forward. Think for a second what this story does not say. Does not say you have to fix everything. Does not say your worth is measured by how exhausted you are in serving and pouring out. Does not say discipleship is eternal burnout wrapped up in and call it holy, or being broke wrapped up and call it holy. At the cross, Jesus did not say, do more, right? He said it's finished. The weight of the world's salvation rests on his shoulders, not ours. His death is the end of proving yourself, your resurrection. His resurrection is the beginning of living from a gift that he's given you, not anything you've given. And so what this story does not say is you may feel overwhelmed or burdened by what's to come, the needs of the church, the price tag up ahead. But the gospel is still overwhelming. And it's only ever meant to overwhelm us with grace, not responsibility. So if all we get tied up in this lease is the responsibility and not the grace, we've missed the point. What the story does say, though, is there is always more Jesus than there is need, right? Always. There is always more bread than there are mouths. There is always more baskets of leftovers than anyone ever expected. And so on Good Friday, it looked like sin, right? It looked like violence, death. It looked like all of that had the final word. On Easter morning, there was more life than there was death. Miraculously, impossible. More mercy than there was sin. More risen Christ than all of the world's piled needs all together. The miracle is not just that Jesus uses us. The miracle is that Jesus chooses also to feed us with his own life, broken and poured out, crucified and risen, so that we never serve from an empty table. This is the kind of community we're building here. A world where everyone is fed physically, emotionally, spiritually, all that feels impossible. And I promise, watch what happens. Watch what happens when the power of Jesus meets ordinary loaves and faithful hearts.